But first, guns, God, and the grace to listen. That's the focus of tonight's angle. High school students, parents, brothers, sisters, raw emotion, suffering, sacrifice, bravery, heartache, evil, sorrow, anger. 17 dead.
The NRA is murdering me. The NRA is murdering you. Our family and our friends are being murdered by the NRA right now.
No more placing nonsensical politics above our lives. No more accepting donations from the NRA, who seem to care more about their right to own a gun than the lives of American children.
When did politics and money from the NRA become more important than our lives? Our message is simple, and it's never again.
Well, people want quick solutions. They want action. They also want answers as to how a 19-year-old with a serious mental illness can slip through the cracks. How did the FBI not follow up on obvious red flags? How the shooter had access to a weapon despite his obvious mental health issues. It's all infuriating and beyond upsetting. And at the White House today, the president brought parents and students and teachers together who were grieving from Parkland and from other terrible tragedies right here also in D.C. He let everyone have their say.
I was lucky enough to come home from school. Unlike some of my other classmates and teachers,
this solution is not going to be a singular thing. It's going to be multifaceted, and it's going to be created by a collection of different people working together. And we all have to realize that we all have our opinions, and together we're going to be able to work to a solution.
Well said. The conversation now has turned to banning AR-15 style weapons, guns that have been called assault weapons or weapons of war.
And I don't understand why I could still go in a store and buy a weapon of war, an AR. I was reading today that a person 20 years old walked into a store and bought an AR-15 in 5 minutes with an expired ID. How is it that easy?
Many of you remember the last time we had an assault weapons ban. It was from 1994 to 2004. The study of the ban that was done by the National Institute of Justice concluded that the ban produced no discernible reduction in the lethality and injuriousness of gun violence. It went on to note that assault weapons were rarely used in gun crimes even before the ban. Look, there are close to 15 million AR-15 style rifles in the United States today. It's one of the top-selling style of weapons in the country. And it may be hard to believe, especially after last week, these guns are actually rarely used to commit violent crimes. According to the FBI, rifles of all kinds, not just the AR or semi-auto type, accounted for just 3% of firearms homicides in 2016, while handguns accounted for 65%. And contrary to what you hear in the media, handguns are also still by far the weapon of choice for mass shooters. Depending on the definition, it's when 3 or 4 more people are killed. Now, don't take it from me. Even left-wing media outlets, you see the graphic there, from things like Mother Jones, in its own review of the mass shootings from 1982 through 2012, found that 66% of the weapons were handguns, while just 14% would qualify as assault weapons, according to the definition used by gun control advocates. And now, writing in Reason magazine, Jacob Sullum, he affirms that banning assault weapons will simply not stop mass killings, writing, "Politicians, activists, and journalists who have decided to blame mass shootings on assault weapons either do not acknowledge these facts or wave them away. It is clearly possible to carry out attacks similar to last week's without using assault weapons. 9 of the mass shootings with the 20 highest death tolls involved handguns or long guns that are not covered by the Feinstein bill. That includes the 3rd deadliest mass shooting, which killed 32 people at Virginia Tech in 2007, as well as 2 other attacks that killed 17 or more people. GQ magazine, not exactly a conservative outlet, addressed the same issue a few years ago, and it agreed, noting that even the Democratic staffers who wrote the now expired 1994 federal assault weapon ban knew it was a largely symbolic policy. Perhaps the most poignant words today came from a father, Andrew Pollock, who buried his daughter Meadow just a few days ago. Flanked by his sons, his rage and his frustration was evident.
All these school shootings, it doesn't make sense. Fix it. It should have been one school shooting, and we should have fixed it. And I'm pissed, because my daughter I'm not going to see again. She's not here. She's not here. We all work together and come up with the right idea, and it's school safety. It's not about gun laws right now.
The focus should be on school security, the soft targets that are so vulnerable today. Arming staff who are well-trained, getting authorities on the state, local, and federal level to see the obvious warning signs and act on them, and this obvious fact that America has become a society of strangers. Distance through social media, all those anonymous insults and condemnations, were often unduly harsh and disconnected.
We must create a culture of connectedness. We must create a culture in which our classmates become our friends. Every single one of these school shootings have been from young men who are disconnected.
And let's not discount this fact that while schools obsess about diversity, sometimes that only breeds tribalism. And social media, as I mentioned, creates not a community, but a forced distance, a sense of longing, even envy. So maybe it's time to listen to what Steve Scalise said last week when I spoke to him just hours after the shooting in Parkland. Prayer works, he said. Getting back to the basics. Common sense, family, friendships, and belief that God loves us all no matter what we're going through. Think about that JROTC student, Peter Wang, and what he showed us when he sacrificed himself. He was only 15 years old, but he helped save numerous fellow students and teachers by first ushering them to safety. His training already kicked in. So amidst all the cries for change and legislation, his example is the one I hope more of us emulate. The president did a really good thing today. But as we seek to learn from these horrific tragedies and fix what we can, emotion cannot and should not ever override our Constitution. We must respect the rights that our Creator gave us. Yes, the Second Amendment's right to keep and bear arms, and also our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those 17 students and teachers who are no longer with us, they don't have either of those rights, not the Second Amendment and not life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's the angle.